discovering my true gifts, which all happened in the marketing of my own business, I realized that what people struggle with is actually some of the things that I'm actually naturally really good at, like Instagram and Facebook and social media. And, when I was putting together funnels and landing pages and lead magnets and all of that stuff, and when I realized I could actually show and teach people exactly what I do.
Today I get to speak with Phoebe Lay. She's a business coach and mentor, and as a founder and director of Thrive and Shine Company, Phoebe helps entrepreneurs and business owners with their social media marketing, including Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Phoebe combines her expertise in business coaching with her strengths in branding and social media marketing to give business owners a system and a blueprint to generate leads and increase profit through building a strong online presence. Phoebe also has an online program and runs regular masterminds and workshops to help small and medium businesses gain more customers and scale their brands through social media marketing. Over the past 3 years, Phoebe has developed a 7-step system for her clients, which she shares at workshops and events. Let's listen into this conversation and follow along the journey of Phoebe Lay. Thank you for tuning in to Hacks and Hobbies with your host, Junaid. We're visited by our amazing guests coming from all walks of life who want to learn their story, their struggles, and their journey on how they got to where they are today. So stick around. Phoebe, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute honor and a pleasure.
So Phoebe and I have been connected through social media, specifically Facebook, for quite some time. I can't even remember how I discovered her, but she's been doing some really amazing things with her audience, with the knowledge that she has and going into the coaching business. And I was like, hey, I love what you're doing. Let's bring you on to the podcast. And since we have this time zone difference, she's in Australia, I'm in the US, we are literally worlds apart. When I'm going to sleep and is when she's waking up. So we finally figured out a time that worked for both of us. So really appreciative of, coming on and making this happen for us.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I mean, for me, it's 2 p.m. my time at the moment. So I'm not staying up. It's right in the middle of the day.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad we could work it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually took a little nap because I put my daughter to sleep around 9:30, and then I usually knock out as well. So I was like, okay, I'm going to put her to sleep. I'll be a little refreshed, and then come on and do the episode. All right, so what I really love to get into is the origin story. Tell us a version of your journey that no one's heard of before. So starting from the grassroots, where do these mindset evolve from? How did your platform emerge from? So
Yeah.
give it a go.
Well, I guess I'm actually in the process of writing a book about this. So it is kind of an unheard story. And let's see what comes out, because I think every time I tell it, it's different. There's so many details to it. But and it, I grew up in a family where my mum, being a Chinese mother, was very, very much about, and also my grandmother as well. I'll bring her into this in a bit, but she was very much about always striving for excellence, and a very typical Chinese tiger mom. I don't know if you've heard of that book, Battle Hymn of the Tiger Mother. But when that came out, my mom was the first to buy it. And she said to me, look, Phoebe, they've actually come out with a book that talks about Chinese moms like me. And I was like, that's great. And I remember her, that moment that she had of just how proud she was that, there are, it's being publicized, that there are women like her that want their children to be the best, to go and learn art, do dancing, ballet, after school tuition and all that. And so growing up, I always had this expectation that I would come out and come out of school and be someone that had a professional job and a professional career, and then get married, have children, and do all of that by the age of 30, and buy houses and things like that. And I remember like that pressure that I had on myself, especially when I was at uni. I was studying radiography to eventually become an ultrasonographer. And that was, again, a suggestion from my mom. And I stuck it out. And I remember really struggling with anxiety at the age of 24. And it was to the point where it was very, very debilitating. I couldn't work, I couldn't study. I was just constantly worrying about my marks, whether or not I'd finish uni and come out and wear that square hat and make my parents proud. And it was something that I ended up overcoming. Like, I overcame that through the help of my family, and also mainly through the changing of my mindset. And it's funny, like, you look back at it now, and it's been so many years. And I think I said 24. I think I was about more like 19 or 20, actually. It was 24 that
Yeah.
I finished my degree. So I was quite young and had all that pressure on myself. And I speak to young people these days now, and I say it's actually not about like you knowing what you want to be when you finish school and knowing straight away what your true life purpose is. That's something
Yeah.
that takes time. And even now, in my 30s, I am still finding, people still ask me, like, what's your purpose? And you still sometimes go, that could be something that's still evolving. That could be something that I might think I know now, but in 5-10 years time, it, that vision might become clearer, and it does over
Yeah.
time. So long story short, I ended up finishing my uni degree, got a really good job, and worked in the UK for a bit. So did a lot of traveling, a lot of solo traveling in my 20s. Went to Europe like 4 times on my own, which, I remember my parents were like, what are you doing? You're going to get human trafficked. You're going to get taken and there's no Liam
Yeah.
Neeson to save you. Um,
Yeah.
and I eventually discovered that I really had a drive and a passion for creative work, and particularly photography. And that was basically how it all evolved. I started my first side hustle, which was a photography business. And I left a full-time job, and people thought I was crazy. My friends were like, what are you doing? You've got this job. You like studied so damn hard, like went through all that, and you're now just going to drop it all and go to TAFE and study photography. And I was like, yeah, it's my passion. I'm going to follow my passion. I'm all about that. And the things that have evolved, like now, that was 6 years ago, or, I don't know how long, like 5 or 6 years ago. Now I look back and I go,
Yeah.
that was all for a reason. Like every single stepping stone taught me something. It taught me about looking at the bigger picture. It taught me, when I was studying photography, it taught me about the way people live on creativity and passion, and they don't have an income like had an income like I did. They were literally just, working at like a cafe or a bar at night, and then doing what they loved. And so
Yeah.
that made me less and less fearless about not having that stable, consistent income, and that, I guess, soft cushion to fall back on, which eventually led me to business now.
That's amazing. It's that story is so beautiful, and where you discover yourself, and that it's true, like people discover themselves throughout their lives. One of the and age doesn't matter. You could be in your 20s, you could be in your 30s, you could be in your 60s when you're finally realizing your why. Like a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm too old for this," and Gary Vaynerchuk actually tells you you're not old. You've still got time, right?
Yeah.
And you're telling us about getting into photography, picking a passion, and just putting all of it in all of yourself into that new passion helps you grow in a way that structured grow, like it's almost like you go to a nursery garden and they've got a plan for these plants. Okay, they're going to go through this process and go, and that's basically school. You go through that program. But then there's the wildflowers. They're still growing out there. They're still making people's days by blooming, those purples, those pinks, those, different colors. So where you find that nutrients, it all comes down to how you use that passion and the brain power. So thank you for sharing. That was beautiful.
It's a pleasure. I love that analogy.
I love analogies. Like live on these. But the other powerful part that I noticed was, so you went into the passion, you grew through the different stages, and Gary Vaynerchuk, he says, it doesn't matter what age you are, and you said the same thing. You still are evolving into your why. Like when I was younger, I was like, oh, I want to be a graphic designer, or I want to be a web designer. This is what I'm going to do. This is my career. I never really finished college, like myself, because I just kept thinking about different things and what can be done. And at a much younger age, I was introduced into like working. So, anyways, long story short, now that I'm in my 40s, I figured a lot of different things out and putting those puzzle pieces together. I'm like, it's not too late for me. I could still do this. And past 2.5 years have been like monumental because I've been able to connect to so many different people in the space of making their own path and making their own future. And I look at them like, oh, this person's making blah 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 per month, and all it they're working for themselves.
Yeah.
It's very enticing, right? You're like, oh, make 30K to 50K on high level ticket items. Like, what is this stuff, right? How are they able to do it? And it comes down to systems, right? You got to have a system in place. A business cannot grow. I mean, you can grow so far as an entrepreneur or as a solopreneur or a freelancer, but once you start putting systems in place, then you truly realize the potential of how many hours you can multiply in a day.
Mm, yeah, definitely.
All right, so I don't know what I'm thinking. Okay, so let's come back to some um, base ground. So what
Mm.
keeps you motivated and keep going in this direction? I mean, the results have to be it, right?
Yeah, well, one of the things that keeps me motivated, aside from the fact that I think innately, thanks to my tiger mom and thanks to the upbringing that I have, I am innately one of those people that, some people call me a high achiever,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. I never really realized or knew I was a high achiever. I always thought,
Mm-hmm.
no, I'm just, like there's all these people that are more successful than me, that are younger than me, that are, and I never really realized that until I remember one day
Mm-hmm.
sitting down and someone was like, wait, so you've got your own business in social media marketing and you've got a social enterprise and you do art and photography and we were talking about, like, we somehow just got onto the topic of just what we do, and
Yeah.
we kind of like listed out some of the things that we were just proud of. We were just celebrating life and just celebrating ourselves, and she was like, you're an absolute high achiever. And I remember thinking, am I? Like, is that really like a thing? Like, I mean, I know it's a thing, but like,
Mm-hmm.
it never, like, it was something that I never would have called myself or said that until someone else
Yeah.
pointed that out, and I thought, oh, maybe that is. But I would say that one thing I am is someone that is quite motivated and someone that really does want to, have long-term success. And the
Mm-hmm.
big reason for that is because ultimately, I mean, you have a family, so I think you would know, what it's like to have children and, your wife and kids, and to be able to afford the things that you like and enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I, always like look towards is my future, and thinking about how I can support my family and be able to, live an abundant life where I just live very comfortably. I can give and contribute to the causes that are important to me, such as human trafficking, and
Mm-hmm.
understand that, there's an abundance of opportunity out there, and we can go and make whatever we want of ourselves if we decide that we want to go and, really live our best lives, because we only have one chance at this. So why would I want to live a life where I would end up, living a very comfortable lifestyle
Mm-hmm.
versus a financially struggling lifestyle for life? Like I chose that path, and so
Yeah.
I've always very mindful of like committing to that vision and that goal, and also knowing that it's not just about how much you have now. It's actually also about like, what can you give back as well, to others, and you can't give to others
Yes.
unless your cup is full. So
That's so true. That is so true. To be able to give to others, you need to realize and be self-aware, right, of what gifts that we already have.
yeah.
How can we teach that? And a lot of times people, well, it's human nature to self-doubt, to have that self-limiting belief, right?
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for your mother to keep pushing you and keep achieving for that high, for that next achievement, or being more confident. I think confidence is grown, is what's that word? It's cultivated from external sources. And then when you start realizing, then you are the self cultivator of that motivation and of that confidence.
Yes, for sure, definitely.
Okay. So if my audience were listening, and what what lesson what are some of the tips that you can give them to you know be more fearless in what their mind is set to, like how what are some of the tips that you can share with our audience?
Yeah. You know, one of my favorite songs, and I don't know if you know this song, but it's called 100 by Khalid.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite parts of that song is where he goes, you know, we've got to stay. He sings about staying focused on the vision and not
Mm-hmm.
caring about what others think or what others say, and that there are people out there that are going to pull you down. They're going to, have their opinions of you, but you've got to walk your talk. And
Mm-hmm.
and in that song, if you listen carefully, if you even just look up the lyrics,
Yeah.
he specifically he reminds us that we have to not care about what others think or say, because we're the ones that are living our word. And so
Yeah.
I really think that at the end of the day, what matters is our integrity to ourselves and what feels good. So rather than working hard at something because it brings you money or because your parents said you have to, we should be doing the things that are easy to us, that we enjoy, because
Mm-hmm.
then the money and the finances and the flow and abundance will come. It will naturally come without
Yeah.
without you even having to strive. So rather than striving, do what makes you thrive. And I guess all of that, that's the reason why I decided, when I started my first business in coaching, Thrive and Shine Coaching,
Mm-hmm.
which now has evolved into a social media agency, very different to how I expected it at the start. I called it Thrive and Shine because I really believe that when people rise up to thrive and to choose their true message, then they shine from the inside out. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that is so that is so true because um, each one of us are unique and very in our own ways. There's no two of the same person. Even two people growing up in the same house have completely different personalities, completely different passions, completely different abilities that they can use to grow themselves, help others. And I think that's one of the most powerful things as human beings. It is in our innate nature to help others thrive and help
definitely.
others grow, you know? And it's it just happens to be that somehow in society it became okay to put other people down, or it became okay to compare, or compare and contrast. And unfortunately that's brought a lot of people down, and you start comparing the Joneses. What do you have, competition wise? But I think a lot of the times I've heard the term, it's lonely at the top. What's
Hmm.
funny is that it's not really lonely at top, because people who are up there, they want other people to come up, and they are willing to reach that hound down and like, hey, let me help you up, let me help you come up here. And you'll notice that is anytime you're in a group of people and they're always rising you up and encouraging you, immediately you'll start realizing that they are, and it's always the people that are have achieved and gone through the process of the cocoon, the butterfly. And it's the people that haven't figured that out that always will pull you down, because they don't want to change, they don't want you to change.
Yeah, very true. That is so true. And and they're afraid of you changing. I think that's a really good point that you make. The people around you that might even be the people that love you, but they are afraid. Like I don't remember. I remember for so long, in that first year of my business, my mum was like, "Oh, this is great, but why don't you keep your radiation license, keep your full-time job, or keep that skill up, because you just never know." But I remember going, that's mom coming from a place of love, but I also
Mm-hmm.
have to be responsible, and yeah, if that's something that I needed, then definitely. But I also had to believe in myself, and I knew that
Yeah.
I knew it was going to happen, that it was something that was absolutely possible. And I just needed to make sure that I was still doing the work, still learning, and practicing what I preach. And
Yeah.
eventually one day it happens where you look back and you go, oh my gosh, I don't know what I was so afraid of. Like it was always bound to happen. So it's
No, that is so beautiful, because yes, we got to have that backup plan. We got to be able to, you know, land on our feet if everything goes downhill. We still have a skill set that we can go back to, right? But I think Gary V says, and others says, you got to put it all in for it to really, thrive and grow. Because it's almost like, so this year, because COVID-19, we were like, all right, we got to do some vegetable gardens, because we're just going crazy. So we built this vegetable garden, and we
nice.
planted these tomatoes and these cucumbers and these zucchinis and these summer squashes all together in a space. And this was our first time experimenting. And so I had no idea the type of plant a summer squash or zucchini plant looks like. Like I had no idea the way their growth patterns. We had tomatoes last year, like, so I kind of knew, okay, tomatoes just grow top, and they'll expand sideways. And then a few weeks later, we're continuing the water. We provided good soil for them, the squash took over an entire half section of the bed, and there's the poor eggplants were not even growing because they're not getting the sun, they're not getting the light. So what we did is like, okay, we need to build another one and move these eggplants over to the next one. And then when we did that, we saw that when you give the proper space and proper nutrients and proper time to something, how it'll grow. And then now our eggplants are doing amazing. We've got these huge eggplants growing on them. The plant has grown because now it's getting full sun. But when you're, I think it's almost like if you have something on the back burner, and that's what a side hustle technically is, right? It's a hobby, it's on the back burner. You're not giving it full strength water, fertilizer,
Absolutely.
sun at all. So it's not going to grow.
Absolutely, could not agree more. I really think that if you really believe in something and you really believe that you can achieve it, then
Yeah.
if you put your mind to it, it will happen. So whatever you put your mind to, whatever you focus on, is what.
Yeah.
And if you sow your time and energy into it, you're going to reach a point where
Yeah.
you go, wow, that was so worth it. And you'll start to see rewards, and then the fun happens. You start to see rewards, so you put more into it,
Yeah.
and you put more and more and more, and then it starts to evolve.
Yeah. You realize, oh, this is working. Let me put some more resource. Let me give it some more space for it to grow. And then you start seeing. So,
Absolutely.
what are some of the key things that somebody should focus on to establish that kind of mentality?
Look, I think one of the key things that people need to look on is making sure that they have a good mentor, and making sure that they are constantly learning, because it is a
Mm-hmm.
process of learning and evolving. And that's something that it doesn't just happen overnight. Your
Yeah.
success is a continuous practice. It's continuously showing up, and being willing to, like, do it tough for a little bit, to work
Yeah.
more hours, etc., but committing to your vision. Time will pass very, very quickly, and before you
Yeah.
know it, you'll be starting your second or your third business, and it gets exciting from there.
It does. So I think in my mind, what's really also helpful, besides a mentor, because they help guide you, they help raise you up, and because they've walked the path, especially somebody that done it yesterday is gonna have a much fresher in their mind than somebody who's done it 10 years ago, right? So
Certainly.
we want to find coaches and mentors that's been very closely through that pathway, right?
Definitely.
They can see where you're coming from and able to guide you in that direction as well. I think that's really powerful. But then also being in a community where you have other like-minded people that are also looking to grow, also looking to expand their mind and upgrade their mindset.
Yeah. Definitely. I agree. Couldn't agree more, actually. Your community is everything. And at the moment, as we're actually working on a digital startup academy launch, which is a side thing of a joint venture with two other experts. And we're
Hmm.
showing people exactly that, how to build a community of raving fans, and also to find your tribe. So yeah,
Beautiful. No, that's really important because once you find your tribe, but before you even get to that tribe part, there's a very important aspect that I think you need to realize, and that's figuring out who you are,
definitely.
right? Figuring out what I love to do. Like, I love playing with cameras. I love playing with toys, or, building Lego sets, or, shooting videos, or going out and riding my bike, and so you got to find what you're really truly passionate about and what you can truly teach somebody else about.
Yeah.
So I think that's what a mentor will tell you. Like, okay, let's figure out your why. Let's figure out who you are. Let's figure out who you really want to show up in the community as.
Yes, absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, Phoebe, it's been an awesome conversation. You've shared your journey that no one's heard of before. You're writing a book, so we're super excited to see when that book comes out and share with our audience, and they can connect with you on a much deeper level. Your motivations and how you've come through the realization and grown over time, and help others do the same by through your companies, and through your social media systems. It's been really exciting to learn more about you from a one-to-one rather than watching lives. And I mean, that has been very inspiring as well, watching your lives on your Facebook, and the different groups that Thrive and Shine group. That's been pretty powerful. So at this point, we usually have really cool questions for our guests. So if you stick around, we'll ask this question and bring them to you.
Sure. Sounds good.
Awesome. All right. So the very first question: what is the one hobby that you wish you got into?
That I wish I got into. Okay. Well, I say a hobby that I have eventually gotten into, or is it more something that I
Of
haven't
course.
done? Well,
Yeah. Yeah.
I recently discovered Latin dancing, and I wish that I got into that earlier. I you know
Mm-hmm.
I got into that right before COVID hit, so it was about 3 months. But luckily, I'm one of those people that love to immerse myself in whatever I'm doing. So in
Mm-hmm.
those 3 months, I was going to classes almost like every second day, or social events almost every second day. So I was lucky I did
Yeah.
fit that in, but I
Yeah.
definitely wish I got into that earlier. One thing I won't take for granted, of course, in and amongst all this is just the fact that when you have freedom, use it, because you just don't know how long you've got. So and that applies in all areas of life in general. Make the most
Absolutely.
out of it. Yeah.
That is so true. That is so true. And even though we've been stuck at home with COVID, there has been so many more opportunities available, because now you're able to connect with people across time zones and borders without having to buy a ticket. Like, I'm talking with you, you're in Australia, and I'm here in the US, and we're having this amazing conversation. So reach out and make that time valuable. One
Absolutely.
of my guests that I spoke with recently also got into Latin dancing. It changed her entire life. And
Oh,
she was talking how she's created an entire studio up in Canada all around Latin dancing, and she was naming all the different types of dances there are, and how it motivated her and created this freedom for her, and then she's able to teach others.
oh, that is so beautiful. So good to hear.
Really?
That's
Yeah.
brilliant.
All right, next question. What did you want to be when you were a child?
Great questions. I think when I was a child, I just wanted to. I think it was something in the medical field. I think I just wanted to be
Mm-hmm.
like a doctor or a
Mm-hmm.
nurse or something. I wanted to help people. And I think it also, again, was inspired by me and my mum, because when we used to play with my dolls, we would play
Yeah.
big nurse, little nurse, and I'd like nurse the
Mm-hmm.
dolls. So yeah, it was definitely something to do with the medicine field. And I guess in a way I did get into that for
Mm-hmm.
for a bit of time.
Well, what's powerful about that is the key aspect of that entire answer. What I see is that you love to help people. And guess what? Even though you're not in the medical field, you are still helping people. Isn't that beautiful?
Yes, yes, it is. And yeah, you're so right, because we are always, like, it's still got to do with our purpose. And I think we don't necessarily change that much. It's more that we evolve.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah,
the visions and things like that, that evolves, as opposed to us necessarily changing or becoming a totally
yeah,
different person. It's more that we're just evolving into who we are, into who we're meant to
yeah,
be.
exactly. So cool, so awesome. All right, next question. What is your favorite movie or TV show? And if not, how about a book?
Yeah, okay. I think one of the favorite, I have so many, but gosh, I think one of my I think it might be easier if I choose my book, because I'm actually looking at it right here at the corner of my eye. It's called Conversations with God by Neil Donald
Mm,
Walsh, and it's actually, funnily enough, not what the title of the book is. It's actually not really about God, but it's about us,
mm-hmm.
and the fact that we've got that, um, that creator in us, and that the creator
Mm-hmm.
actually, we're all one, and also we are nothing without each other. And this book
Mm-hmm.
was amazing, because it helps me to evolve so much from a young girl into realizing that I could go and be whoever I wanted to be, and go and do
Yeah.
whatever I wanted to do as well. And do what really made lit me up, and things that make me happy, and also
Mm-hmm.
being that creativity, which wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily as encouraged. I mean, like, even though my family, we're like, I've got my grandma, who's an artist, that I forgot to mention as well, and she's the
Mm-hmm.
one that where all the perfectionism comes from. I think
Mm,
creativity comes out in all different areas of life, in different ways of how we live, and so we can
yeah.
choose to live in a creative way, um, any time of the day, any day of the week. So
No, absolutely.
yeah, so that's one of my favorite books, because that really liberated me from a lot of, like, my perfectionism and my high standards that I had for myself.
Mm. You know, when you mentioned about creator and creator and our and human beings per se, it actually triggered a thought in my head, and I started thinking about how human beings are made of clay, and the entire property of clay is to stick together and build upon.
Mm,
You can, you can be a single brick, but you're nothing as a single brick. But if you put a brick together, you have a strong wall, a strong foundation for something to grow. So I think that's in the nature, like we are created from atoms and atoms put together. So that's how we
yeah,
thrive. And
so true. That's such a good analogy again.
I'm telling you, and the other thing that I was thinking about was, so as human beings, we are three-dimensional, but there are so many other dimensions that we cannot see, hear, or even experience. For example, angels are one-dimensional. They're only God only created them to for angels to worship Him. Then there's jinns, or iblis comes from, and they're two-dimensional. Basically, they made of fire or smokeless fire. And I'm thinking about fire. Fire doesn't really need to stick together because it actually destroys everything that comes in its path.
Mm,
And but human beings created from clay, being three-dimensional, are the building or character building. I mean, there's so many different levels that we can go into, and I don't want to go into a different philosophical, you know,
totally different episode, isn't it?
different episode. Absolutely, yeah. Thank you so much. All right, next question. What movie would you choose if you got to play a character in it?
Oh, that's such a that's such a hard question. Um, yeah, that's a tricky one. I guess I think for me, I would want to be. There was a movie that I recently saw again with my
Hmm.
mom. It's funny she's come up so many times in this conversation, but I was watching a movie with my mom, which was one of like the like best selling box office movies in China last year, and it's
Hmm.
called Climbers. And I highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. Climbers. It's
Hmm.
about these climbers of Everest, and they actually start off the movie by showing these guys climbing Mount Everest, almost getting to the top. They're in death zone, so this is where like most people die in this area.
Hmm.
And one of the guys actually saves the life of the other guy, but loses the camera that records their climb. So they actually could not prove to the world that they climbed Everest that year, and they had to do it again 15 years later.
Oh,
And it's an amazing movie. And there's this woman who he was in love with, and he comes back from the climb, and they see each other again, and you think, oh, it's happily ever after, but it's not, because then he goes and does the climb again, but she actually
hmm.
goes off to study in Russia, so they don't see each other for a number of years until they meet again when he's on this, he's about to prepare for the second climb. But she is the reporter of the mountain conditions for them. So this beautiful
Hmm.
story evolves, and it's about her encouraging him on his journey, and encouraging him to fulfill his goals and dreams, and she
Nice.
actually enables him by being the voice in the ear when they're climbing, to say, go ahead or don't go. And it's this beautiful movie, so it
Oh
brought me to
wow.
tears. Such a good film, worth watching. Yeah, Climbers, highly recommend
So
it.
you'd be one of the climbers.
I don't think I'd want to be one of the climbers. No, no, definitely not.
You'd be the reporter in the ear.
Yes, yeah, being like, you can do this.
Motivating. Dude, it comes back again. You're motivating, you're helping them achieve this goal. Look at that, dude. This
Oh, wow, there you go. I was just more inspired by the love that they had, and also the fact that
Yeah,
she
yeah.
could take part in it. But yeah, it's so true, because if it wasn't for her, I don't think he would have made it up in the end. But
Yeah.
there's a sad twist to the story, so I won't ruin it.
Yeah. No, awesome. We need people like that to help us, and a mentor does exactly that. They can see the path in front of you, the scene where you came from. They spend a lot of time helping you realize what your potential. And
Yes,
because a lot of times you cannot see from the outside what, like I can't see from the outside of what I look like unless I have a camera in front of me, right?
that's
So
right. That's right. And that's what
so important.
her role was. They couldn't see that there's, like there's going to be extreme weather coming up, or
Hmm.
that, to be careful of an avalanche. And so that was something that, she on the sidelines was helping them to be able to achieve. So it was really amazing.
That's awesome. I'll have to check out that movie for sure.
Yes. Please let me know how you
All right,
go.
will do. Next question. Who is your favorite superhero or your superhero power?
Okay. I think my favorite superhero would definitely be Mulan. Um,
Mm.
because what she does for her family is amazing.
Oh yeah.
And as a woman, she's like, I can do this. I can go to war, even though I'm a woman. And
Yeah.
she, like, the love that she had for her family was incredible. Is incredible. And I've seen so many different versions of it, but it's something that my grandma
Hmm.
would tell me that story from a young age. And yeah, so
Yeah.
that brings back good memories.
It's so empowering, right? And it's amazing that they've done that live action version of the film Mulan just recently, right? So it just came out, And we've seen the movie in animation form by Disney, many years ago. But bringing that in reality and showing the empowerment of women, that anything is possible. You just gotta put your mind to it.
That's right.
So many parallels, man. It's driving me. It's giving me goosebumps. All right, last question. If you were a board game, what would it be?
If I was a board game, what would it be? Wow, that's so hard. Can you tell me some board games so I could choose
Sure.
from that?
So there's a board game called Trouble. There's a board game called Life. There's Scrabble. There's Monopoly, of course. There's Risk. Um, there's um, there's a ton of board games that come out that I don't even know about. They've even have a board game that can let you play soccer as a board game. It's pretty
Wow.
like you roll a dice and you come up with these cards and now you're making a pass to this. It's pretty intense how they created that. But anything that you can imagine can become a board game. There's even a board game that Robert Kiyosaki actually created called the Cash Flow Quadrant or the
Oh,
Rat Race, I think.
amazing. Yeah, I would definitely love to be one of Robert Kiyosaki's board games.
Yeah.
I think like Rich Dad Poor Dad was one of the first books my parents ever gave me as a kid,
Yeah.
and that taught me so much. So let's go with that.
Nice. I like it. I recently actually got the teenage version of the Rich Dad Poor Dad book, and I handed it over to my son, and he finished it up in 2 days. He's
Wow.
like, Dad, that was so good. He loves to read. He's 10 years old. He read all of Harry Potter books
Oh,
in
wow.
about 2 weeks,
Wow,
all
that's
8 books.
amazing.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I need to put this mind into a direction where he can grow at such a young age, you know.
Absolutely.
Potential is absolutely amazing.
Yes.
Awesome, Phoebe. Yeah. So thank you so much, Phoebe, for coming onto the podcast and sharing your journey, sharing your mindset, sharing your wisdom. You know, we keep growing, we keep evolving based on where we put the energies and you've definitely come a long way, but you've got a long way to go. We've all got a long way to go, and we're going to continue to grow. In fact, I was listening to Tony Horton of P90X, the trainer, and he's like, I've never been this strong ever before. And he's 61 years old. He's like, this is the strongest that I've ever been in his entire life. And the way his journey goes, it's just beautiful.
Oh,
It's just beautiful.
well, thank you so much for having me. It was an absolute pleasure, and I'm definitely looking forward to sharing with your audience when my book comes out. And also for anyone that is, looking to improve. Do you mind if I give a
Oh
plug and
yes, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Where can my audience find you?
yeah, I can absolutely find me in two groups. I've got two Facebook groups. One is called the Digital Startup Academy, which we actually have just launched. In fact,
Mhm.
we're in launch stage at the moment, and we're just launching on the 23rd of October our first 3-day challenge. So if listeners are listening to this, check out the Digital Startup Academy on Facebook in a Facebook group, and also Thrive and Shine in Business, because we have an incredible group. I mean, that's how you and I have found ourselves as well. And I do a lot of
Exactly.
Facebook lives in there. I love to share, and and I love having people be able to find their ideal clients through my group and facilitating that. So Thrive and Shine in Business um, is a great Facebook group, as is the Digital Startup Academy. And of course, please check me out on Instagram. My Insta handle is Thrive and Shine Co. It'd be great to, um, you know, be able to connect with your followers on that platform as well if they use it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we'll be sure to drop in all the links to the show notes of this episode so that folks can find the groups, find you on Instagram, and connect with you and learn more about Phoebe. Thank you so much again for coming on. Have an awesome day.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Congratulations, you made it to the end of the episode. Thanks so much for listening to our guest on this episode. Please send me an email at junaid@hacksandhobbies.com to tell me what you loved about our guest today. You could find links mentioned in this episode on the hacksandhobbies.com website.